Hello. Welcome to this podcast being recorded under the deep sea. Let's check out the sky, and we have a lot of guys to show you under here. I'm Morg. My pronouns are they, he.
I'm Katja. My pronouns are they, he, she.
And we have a guest here today to help us actually direct the whole deep sea diving thing.
Hello, I'm Sammie.
Yes. Sammie's here to talk about...
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Ignore me.
No, I was just saying Sammie's here to talk about her character from Resolve Actual Play podcast, or Afterplay. Sorry, it's Afterplay podcast. That's their whole thing.
Yeah, that's right. I'm Sammie. I'm the host of Resolve, an Afterplay show, the show where we have an after show for a role-playing game that does not have an actual play, so you'll have to listen to it. Save you guys some time, and we can ramble about our crazy stories. And I'm here to talk to you about my deep sea mermaid, Asiri Amoli.
Hell yeah. I've got my diving helmet on. I've got flippers, whatever you call them. I've got like the whole snorkel situation. It's gonna go great. I'm sure a snorkel is what you use for deep sea diving.
Oh no, not when we're going this deep. You're gonna get crushed.
It's actually world's longest snorkel. And I am imperious. No, not imperious. I cannot be crushed.
Oh, good
as
to know.
A person. Physically impossible to crush me.
All right, let's begin our dive into the bathopelagic zone. Asiri is a guy, and I love her because she is my most recent creation, which is funny because I made her like 2 years ago now, which is just bonkers to me.
It's a long-ass game. What can you say?
It was a long-ass game. Oh my god, I'm still, like, careening from the end of it.
Yeah, it was, like, nearly, it was, like, almost 60 episodes, right?
Yeah, 60 episodes of the show proper, and then we did some other bonus stuff as well. So, yeah, it was a long haul.
Yeah. Yeah, especially because, like... There's no way you can play every week. Like, I'm sorry, but if you're adults playing a tabletop game, there's no way. I can't play every week.
Yeah, absolutely. We did pretty good.
True.
But there were definitely some weeks where we had to, like, skip. But there were, like, several months in a row that we did get, like, every week. And it was great.
Oh, wow. That is actually a flex, I think.
It is. And it's only because we have such good scheduling.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, whereas my group is pretty good about it because we don't do shit on Saturdays, so we're just like around, you know?
Excellent.
But yeah, so you designed Asiri. Well, you played her in Interstitial, right?
Correct.
Like, that was yeah. But she was like your own creation. You didn't just like take a character. Like, sometimes I think a lot of interstitial characters are like, you know, media properties.
Yeah, and I think that's the intent of the interstitial format. It's supposed to be like a big crossover mash thing. But Dan, our GM, was like, hey, why don't everybody, you know, it can be from an existing property, but like make up your own character in a world so that we can, you know, jive for the story I'm trying to tell. And I was like, okay, cool. And the good news is Dan is my partner, so he's with me all the time. So we were literally like out driving one day and I was like, I don't know what I want to do for your game. And he was like, well, you know, you could try maybe doing something you've never done before. And like, this game fell off the heels of a Vampire the Masquerade campaign that I personally ran. And Dan played a character who is called Alicia, and I adore Alicia. Alicia was such a fun character to witness. But like, her big thing is that she's very inexperienced and like very emotional and very like meek and nuanced in a certain way. And I was like, I've never really played a character with that type. Most of my characters are usually older, they tend to be, I said this on my show, but like I'll say it again here. Like, I love monsters, so very few of my characters are fully human in some aspect. So they tend to be really old, just like decrepit creatures who have lots of experience and are cynical about the world in some fashion. So it was like, okay, if I'm going to do something different, let me try being somebody who is none of those things, just inexperienced, very, very empathetic, very emotional, not yet broken by the terrible things in the world yet.
Oh my god.
God.
You're so valid, just to make that clear. You're really valid in the type of characters that you make.
Yeah, I was like, hell yeah, dude. I love a character like that.
Yeah, because like the most recent character, because I'm a forever GM, so it's fun to break loose and, actually play a character every once in a while. So like the last character I actually got to play before this was our past interstitial campaign, and that's my character Bones, and he's like 200 plus years old and just like very mad about a lot of stuff. So it was nice to jump from that and then my very cynical vampire world to this literal ball of light in the darkness.
Yeah, like Asiri is started off with the light playbook, right?
Correct.
So like she's literally the light in the darkness. But she was, she's also, like, she's young, and she's still, like, pretty small for her, like, mermaid species, too.
Yes.
I just love that, yeah.
Yeah, and by pretty small, I mean 10 feet long.
Yeah, that's, relatively speaking, small.
Let me give a little rundown of what Assyria looks like. I'm sure we'll have art and stuff, whatever, posted somewhere, but, Assyria is a 10-foot-long purple mermaid that's sort of based off of a Greenland shark and a vampire squid sort of smushed together in all the best possible ways. She's got, like, bands of bioluminescence running over her body and these weird hip tentacle things. And I adore every part about her design. This is probably one of the most interesting, like, character setups that I've had for a long time. And I went sort of insane because, well, I'm already insane, let's be real. But when I'm a writer first and foremost, so I write novels and whatever for NaNoWriMo every year. So for me, characters are a combination of several things, right? Your own, like the character's own personality, with how their brain works and operates, how they were raised and the people that are around them. But I think more importantly, and what a lot of people sort of forget to include, is how the world around them affects the things that set them up. So world building is a very key piece of like material that I feel like I need when I write a character. So I have spent a lot of time like working out the evolutionary path that led mermaids to become extant species in this particular timeline of Earth. And I love speculative evolution. I am a marine biologist, so like this is just like what I do for fun. So I've written out like a 15-page lore document based on all of the things and adaptations that she would need to survive, you know, approximately 300 meters plus below the surface of the ocean. So I came at from that standpoint of attack, being like, okay, what would she need? Where would she linearly come from in like a cladistic sense for phylogenetics? And like the long and dirty of that for people who don't speak science is, how would this creature come to exist given the factors that are at play at the ocean depths? And I think I came up with a both somewhat fun, realistic, but also silly enough and campy enough to include the bullshit magic that makes interstitial fun.
Yeah, I skimmed the lore because I was like, oh, this is a science paper.
Yes,
you wrote this as a science paper. This is wild.
I love that. I adore that. I have loved reading that. I had so much fun. I had more fun than I ever had reading actual science papers.
Oh, thank you. Good. That makes me feel good.
No, I genuinely love the format. I think it's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's fun because it was written in like one of the the campaign character, like one of the characters, like the NPC's perspective, right? That's Sierra.
Yes, and that's one of Dan's characters, and he graciously gave me permission to write it from this perspective, mostly because he's like, I wouldn't know how to write it from that perspective because he's not a marine biologist, he's a physicist. So he's like,
yeah,
go nuts, I'll fix it for characterization / technical writing stuff later. And he did some light editing on this to make sure it was more in time with what Sierra might say and what's appropriate to the setting. But like,
yeah,
I just kind of went ham and just sort of filled in all the details for the speculation.
Yeah, I loved it because, yeah, like I also went to school for biology, not marine biology, I was genetics, but like, yeah, I was like, oh, this is like familiar, but it's like fun enough that like someone might, you know, pick it up even if they're not like still in school, you know, they might be like, oh, okay,
yeah.
I am gonna admit that biology is one of the few sciences that I passed back in school, but like a 50%, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I am not good at it. I don't understand it.
That's okay.
But that's okay. You just read words and you let it happen.
Yeah. You let it wash over you.
You let it wash over you.
Exactly. Like the waves of the freaking sea. And you know, that's okay because like sometimes I think even if like obviously not everyone's the master of everything, right? That would be crazy. But like I think sometimes it's more fun to listen to a professional or an expert talk about something in like you know that translatable way. Which is what I was trying to do here. Like, yes, I incorporated a lot of technical terms just for me, just because I'm a geek. But at the same time, I wanted enough to be there to be understood. Like, if I had written this like an actual technical paper, it would A, not be this long, and B, be like 8 times as boring. So
yeah,
it was very readable to someone who has not touched a biology text in. Let me come back. How old am I? When did I graduate? 13 years?
Oh, yeah. Understandable. Have a nice day.
But yeah, I love that. Yeah, you like you made a world for her to inhabit. That's so great because like a lot of that only like comes up tangentially in the game, but like enough of it where it's like important. And also like even if it didn't come up, it's like it shaped her and she's in the game. And yeah, I think you're extremely right about the whole like settings making the character. That's why we're like, okay, when we have guests on and if they want to talk about the setting, we're like, please do.
Yeah, and like I feel like it gives a driving motivation to explain a character's actions. Like a Series A hasn't seen any technology like at all. And if she has, it's probably like a crushed submarine or like, you know, a sunken ship, something like so decayed and busted beyond its original function, she wouldn't really identify it anyway. That sort of deal. And like, there's no money down there. There's no like reading. Like the entire like language system is entirely based off of the mermaid song. So I really... Yeah. I really wanted to give a perspective, and this, again, ties into this meeker, more innocent character that I wanted to play. I wanted to literally play a fish out of water. So I think I did pretty good at creating that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, tell us about kind of, like, what the deep folk that is series from, they're like, kind of.
Yeah, so the deep folk from, like, a very... like rough and hard stance. They're very large in general. What did I say here? They get to be like around like 9 meters long or something. They're just huge at their full size. And they're a subspecies of the overall mermaid like species. Duh. And they are the deepest living, which is why they're called the deep folk, and they've split off from the other mermaids probably roughly 100,000 years ago, something like that, give or take. And they've sort of evolved to live in the crushing depths of the sea by sort of, you know, embracing an entity known as the Abyss. And all mermaids worship the Abyss. out of the three groups, which are the deep folk, the shallow folk, which live more coastally in the open waters, and then there's the river folk that I don't have very much lore for because I need to work on it. But they live in like rivers, lakes. They're more, terrestrially freshwater locked. But the deep folk, I think, by nature of their environment, are the ones that are most in tune with the entity known as the Abyss. And the Abyss is not a god. I think the word god was thrown around in our game just for like simplicity, but it's more of just like a primordial entity. I feel like something that distinguishes a god has like a god has will. Like you think of Zeus or Athena, they're like doing something. They're like having a choice in an action. I think the Abyss is just sort of maintaining whatever needs to be. And if it does willfully do something, it's incredibly subtle. It's not like, oh, I'm going to zap you because I think you did something wrong. It's like, oh, I'm going to slowly push this species towards the water. And then, 10,000 years later, we have whales. Something much longer than that. Wow, 10 million years later, we have whales. So it's a lot more subtle, indirect, and inscrutable. And I kind of want to liken it a little bit to an eldritch creature, but not quite. It's not like meant to horrify, but I think its existence would be horrifying to the living, just because it's just incomprehensible in that way. And its domains encompass obviously the deep dark sea, the depths and everything, but also the darkness and confines of space. So I like to imagine it being that shrouding blanket that protects and sandwiches the small little narrow space of real estate that we're able to live in. And I think that's such a fascinating concept that I've had a lot of fun riffing off and working with.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. It's almost like it expressed a sort of knowledge in your game, but it's like hard to be like, I think that was an interesting circumstance there that maybe I don't want to spoil too much about. But
I appreciate it.
But like in general, it sounds like it's not something necessarily with not just like intent, but like thinking things through, like making, but I guess it does, because it still does like subtle changes. And I think that's interesting, right? Like, I think like the way your game called it a god, it wasn't completely like wrong, even if it's not like the traditional like pantheon of gods.
I like
it's still something to worship, I guess, for like the creatures.
True. And I think there's like a couple distinctions I like in my head like to make, is that like I think a god has a sense of morality. I don't think the Abyss does. Like it just doesn't matter. It's above it. It doesn't matter. Like ultimately, like there's no tangible evidence of like good or evil or stuff like that. And then also, what was I going to say? It doesn't
really need morality if it doesn't make active choices, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's not conscious of the things it's doing. There's no thought. It's just action, or just what it needs to do to maintain balance or what have you. And there was something else. Gosh, hold on a second. No, it's gone. It's gone forever.
No, it's all good. I was trying to think about something, too.
It's gone into the abyss, you see?
It has. It returned home.
Yeah, I like, I mean, yeah, you said it wasn't, like, necessarily Eldritch, but it's hard not to, like, compare it to, like, Eldritch and Lovecraftian stuff, just because it's a deep sea being and a deep sea creatures that worship this deep sea entity. Like, it's just like, yeah, it's not like for cosmic horror reasons. It's for like, just,
just natural.
Yeah.
Living their lives.
And, I think there's like, I'm not afraid of the term Eldritch here. I don't mind it. It's just, it's having read a lot of H.P. Lovecraft and other people who deal with the Cthulhu mythos, it's the intention is different.
Yeah.
And I think that's the distinguisher there. But like, if you think about it, what is the sun but like an unknowable swirling thing of energy that if you look at, you'll go blind? Like, is that not an eldritch entity? Like, there's plenty of natural forces around us that we just will probably never truly be able to comprehend in some fashion. So I don't know. It's just these macro scale concepts are something I work with a lot in my personal novel series. To tangent here, like there's a pantheon of gods that really don't. That was the other thing I forgot. It's the entity does not require worship to function. It's just there. So you can believe in it, you can hate in it, you can be ambivalent to it, you can not know about it. It's still going to do what it's going to do regardless of worship. If you worship, cool. If not, then it doesn't care.
Mm-hmm. That's very like alien, you know, like very. I think that that's interesting. That it's kind of alien, but it's also on the planet. But
it's everywhere. Every shadow in the depths and the confines of space. It's just the abyss. It's there. But the merfolk, or the deep folk rather, they're cool with it. They understand it as an entity that brings, you know, life because, you know, their existence is so hard, right? The deep sea is one of the most difficult environments to exist in because there's like almost nothing. It's just like if you're on the benthos at the seafloor, there's just like goo and mud and sand, and if you're in the open ocean in the deep sea, it's just darkness and nothingness. So being able to exist in such a place really tells to the ability of these things to survive and the uniqueness of the civilization that they have down there. And Asiri lives in a city called Odessa Marilla, and by city I mean just like a group of deep sea smokestacks and chimneys. There's like a hot rift down there that just puts up all these weird formations that the merfolk just like to hang out around. And there's probably, like, I call it a city by their terms, but it's probably like no more than like a couple thousand mermaids there at a time. It's just people are constantly coming and going. And the only time that they really group together for any significant purpose is for a ritual to the abyss in their loose governmental religious organization, which is known as the Spiral. And this is important because Asiri is a recent inductee into the priestesses of the Spiral. And this probably happened about a year before the game starts.
Yeah, is she like, so since she was a priestess, like would she stay around the city more than like your typical deep folk maybe, or no?
Yeah, so there's very few restrictions put on any member of the Spiral at any given time, because living too closely together for them can be a little dangerous, because there's just not enough food to go around sometimes, so it's better if they spread out for most of the year and just kind of do their own thing. Which is fine because they live in the ocean and sound carries farther, and they're mermaids, so they sing to each other all the time. You could be like thousands of miles away and still be able to hear, you know, your friends singing if you're a good enough mermaid.
I love how these are never lonely.
Yeah, exactly. And like no matter where you are, you can always hear a part of the song that's around you. So I think the members of the Spiral would probably stay a bit closer to Odessa Marilla just for, you know, ritual stuff, for advice, they're also responsible for healing people if they make it back to town sick or whatever. But they're just really deeply respected members of the community, and one person per cohort, or like, what's the English term for cohort here? Like, I guess like similar to generations, so like Gen Z, Gen Alpha, like one member per that generation is selected to become a member of the Spiral every so often. So it's kind of a big deal. And this is kind of a little bit of a minor problem for Asiri because she was not expecting it. She didn't really like practice for it. She didn't really cater for it. She's like, whatever, I'm just going to hunt and be, you know, my shark self. But her sister, Karina, really wanted it. So that there's a little rift between her and her sister because of it.
Oh, no.
And then she just doesn't feel like she deserved it because she's like, I was not practicing for this. I don't really know anything about anything, but they want me to do this. So, like, am I good enough? That sort of self-anxiety spiral thing going on. Spiral.
To be fair, if someone suddenly gave me a whole bunch of responsibility, I would also be like, ugh, what do I do with this?
Especially if it's not something you were anticipating either. And like, she was like, I have no destiny. I don't really want this at all. It's just like, if it happens, cool. If not, but like, she was like, my sister has been like gunning for this for, you know, she's what, 27? So yeah, for how long? It's a lot for her, and it's a big transition. But the other members of the Spiral seem to take it in stride. The thing that sucks about it is that, society is sort of crumbling around us because tragedy. A series of people eat mostly whale fall, which is the bodies of dead whales. And as they, you know, sink down to the bottom of the ocean, it's like a really, like, injection of life into the deep sea. Thousands of creatures come from miles and miles and miles just to like smorgasbord feast on these things, and they haven't been happening because in the timeline that the series lives in, it's roughly 1960s 1970s Earth during with the worst period of whaling on our planet, which, you know, most people I think not incorrectly think of whaling as something like 17th, 18th century thing on like a big old wooden ship, you know, very Moby Dick, Ishmael sort of situation. But the worst of it actually happened during industrial whaling in the 60s and 70s, especially during the Cold War and the USSR conflict. So like we're talking like thousands and thousands of whales being, like millions of whales being killed per year. Jeez. And like there's just nothing falling down because they're not dying naturally, A, and B, they're being removed for their blubber and meat and whatever. So it's just like, all right, people are starving to death. We need to continue these traditions. We need to get the Abyss to try to help us somehow. Like, all right, perhaps it's time to induct a new priestess. Perhaps it's time to do some more rituals. Perhaps it's time to like be a bit more active in our society. And the series just like, no, I have to help solve this. No, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, it seems extra, like, not just like, oh, I'm getting these expectations, but also my people are struggling, so I definitely can't refuse this. Not that, like, she probably would anyway, but, like, it's, like, extra pressure.
Oh, absolutely. Which is so funny, considering the amount of pressure she's on all the time. Mm-hmm.
Literal and figurative pressure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like, she's still, like, pretty inexperienced when the game starts, right? Like, she's still kind of like, I still don't fully know my place. So that's very interesting because you just, like, end up on a completely different world where you can't breathe.
Yeah, it's just like blam in the desert, no water. She's only been to the surface of the ocean a couple of times, like, if that. So it's just like, oh my god, I'm going to die here. We're in the desert. What? I have never seen anything like this. And like immediately, because, you know, she's a shark, she has electroreceptors in her face. She's like, this is not Earth anymore. I am not home. Where am I? What the hell is going on?
God, that must be horrifying.
Oh yeah, she had a rough start.
She's had a rough life, basically.
Oh, absolutely, but I don't think she knows that.
It's like, this is normal, this is fine.
Exactly, because this has been going on for so long. It's just like, oh, it's amazing that they made it this far in general, really. But it's okay.
I love how we've come from, I wanted to make a character that was different from my, like, Vampire the Masquerade kind of intense backstory, sad stuff. And then, I don't want to be rude. I think you did it again.
Well, it's not so much like I want to get rid of the tragedy, because I love tragedy. I think...
Understandable, yes.
I think tragedy and like hardship is a good motivator for a character. It's just the opinion about it is what I was really focused on. Like, again, all my other characters are cynical and very experienced in everything they do. They've been doing it for like hundreds of years. I have a vampire doctor who's over like thousands of years old, and I love her, but she's a terrible thing. Nightmare creature, love her. But I wanted to be almost naive. I wanted to be ignorant of everything going on around me because she's 27. She's only lived in the darkness. Yeah, she's a baby of her species that lives like 400 years plus. Like, like she doesn't know jack shit about the world. And by golly, she got an introduction to things around her.
No, to be clear, I think it's really cool. I think you're an amazing storyteller. The backstories that you've come up with are incredible.
Thank you.
I was expecting more happy-go-lucky when you said,
oh no, Asiri is happy. She's like the light of the freaking party. She's like so happy all the time. And that's the thing though, right? Because the deep folk are, even though they tend to be like spread apart from each other, like when they are together, community is like the most important thing to them. That's why they maintain songs between such distances. In fact, the most important thing culturally for them is their song. Anytime two mermaids meet in the darkness, they exchange a piece of their song and incorporate it into theirs, so that if one of them does die, if you never meet them again, they're always with you. They're immortal by the second you incorporate their song into your vocabulary. So it's you have to help each other. Asiri can't, like, other than like self-defense or like, you know, some dire circumstances, she just cannot envision herself hurting somebody for no reason, right? So she is such a joyful character. I've never had a character with such levels of optimism despite all of the terrible shit going on around her. But it's just like, by golly, you don't know anything about what's going on, do you?
I mean, well, ignorance is bliss or whatever, you know?
Kinda, yeah.
Like maybe not quite to that point.
I would also be so happy if I was not aware of the crushing reality of my existence.
Oh, yeah.
God. But it's also like, I mean, all things considered, like, if that's what you know, like, she's doing pretty alright. Like, just kind of swimming, you know. Yeah. She's still, like, getting fed at least occasionally.
Every once in a while. I believe I said when, like, the game started, she was like, I haven't eaten in 3 months. It's driving me nuts. So...
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy because she's, like, has way more access to food now in the game.
Good for her.
She's very excited about that. However, it's hot on the surface. She's used to, like, 4 degrees centigrade in the water, so like her metabolism is just kickstarted because she's cold-blooded. Yeah. So like she may be getting more food regularly, but she's still kind of hungry because she's like, hey, I'm big and also it's hot.
Makes sense.
I love her, but yeah.
Yeah, I think she's a lot of fun, like, even though it's, you know, there's a lot of interesting, like, things that I know you don't even want to fully talk about in this because people should listen to your podcast to get more of her background and story and stuff, because...
Come listen to me babble, please. I love it.
Yeah, like, not to plug it in the middle of all of this, but, like, generally, like... There's just some big twists and turns that I'm like,
oh yeah, and you know what's wild? I'm gonna have to correct Dee because I know Dee was on the show before me, and I did listen to their episode. I did not plan for anything that happened to Asiri at all. Like it was just like the logical conclusion to all of the backstory and setup that Dan, Alex, and all the other players like came to the table with, right? So like I was just like, okay, I'm going to be a mermaid. I'm going to do silly, stupid shit like sing at people and like chomp computers because they tickle my face, that sort of stuff. I did not expect it to go where it went, and I'm very pleased that it went. And it was like, okay, this makes sense, but it's just like, ooh, this is not what I was avoiding to do, but like it happened anyway, didn't it?
I think that they are probably just more used to you having, like, machinations in the background. And so it seemed like maybe even if you didn't have this plan from the start, you had like more of an outline out through time, whereas like, yeah, it seems like Dee and Geyser, by extension, like they were like, eventually they found like a place of like, oh, this is the direction it feels like it has to go in. But like, I understand that, like, if you're just, it's just the way you guys are like approach your characters is different, and I think it works together pretty well.
Yeah, and it allowed for a lot of interesting, not conflict, well, I guess sometimes conflicts, but definitely a lot of interesting interactions at the table, right? Because, like, for example, our fellow player character, Alex, my co-host on Resolve, he played a Moogle named Smog, and our characters were literally identical opposites. Like, Asiri's very big femme energy, very, like, kind, sweet, caring, all that, like, not stereotypical, but, like, just the sweeter side that typically gets associated with femininity. And then Smog is, like, this grumpy bounty hunter, harsh, just, like, toxic masculinity, to use Alex's own words. So, like, literally every approach that we took from the same problem, we took it from the opposite sides. And it played off amazingly at, like, the climax, in the mid part of our fucking game. It was like, oh, I wanted to tear his teeth out. It was awful. I loved it.
Amazing sentence. Yeah, great.
And it's really funny because I know a lot of people play Final Fantasy, but like just so you know, like Moogles are very small. Like they're pretty small little guys. So just like this grumpy little fuzzy man who says Kupo sometimes, except he hates saying it specifically, but they usually say it. And then this like big, like 10-foot long pretty fish lady just like about to kill each other.
Oh yeah, she definitely thought about eating him a couple of times. But she had to stop herself because
once again valid.
Yeah, he's sentient, so she can't kill him. At least it
wouldn't have been worth it anyway. There's not that much meat on those bones.
It's all fur. Well, she'd still eat it anyway.
Compared to a whale, yeah.
Yeah.
Does not even register on the food chain.
No, not at all.
But yeah, it is a lot harder to eat something that can communicate with you. That is tricky.
It's
a bit tough.
It's the personhood, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very important culturally for her because, like, yeah, there are a bunch of scavengers in the deep sea, so like they don't mind eating things. Like Asiri has a pet. His name is Forsafini. He's a spotted eagle ray that glows in the dark because magic. But,
woo,
you know,
magic.
Like, when he dies, she would have no problem eating him. Like,
yeah.
But he doesn't talk. He's a pet. And, you know, if a spotted eagle ray for some ungodly reason naturally swam that deep, they would probably get eaten by whatever the fuck is lurking down there. So,
it's
like,
the circle of life.
Yeah, it does, that part doesn't bother her. The part that is culturally taboo is that it's sentient, and merfolk won't eat another mofolk if they find, like, a dead one on the floor. Like, that was a person once, and to do that is to take out of that, like, cycle of decay and renewal. That's for another creature to benefit. You fed off of them while you were alive. It is their time to feed off of you now that you're dead.
Yeah.
That is pretty good. Yeah. That makes sense.
I like that. I also, I know you've developed the deep folk maybe more than like the shallow folk, but I did not realize like the shallow folk also kind of do some like abyss worshipping or fear of the abyss maybe. I think it's interesting, like how, I don't know how to ask, how different are they, at least in a series eyes, like other than, oh, they live in shallow waters? So
she would recognize them as sort of like a cousin. Like I much like that same vibe you get when you maybe see like a recreation of like an ancient person, you know, like, oh, we found these bones in like, I don't know, Scotland or something, and we did that facial reconstruction. You'd see the familiarity there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also something else going on. It's like, I'm not quite uncanny, but like, you know, you and I are similar, but we're not the same. And the shallow folk are very opposite in personality and like behavior than the deep folk. The deep folk are all about community and working together, and there's so few of them, and they live in such a hard place that like it makes sense to rely on each other in this way. The deep folk, because they're sharks and they can sense each other's like body chemistry and all that nonsense, they do not lie because it's pointless to do so. You can tell immediately when somebody starts lying. The shallow folk have those same senses because they're, you know, evolved from the same place. However, they live in such a fast-paced, like, if you've ever seen in one of those, like, reef documentaries where, like, the shark snaps up something in, like, 2 seconds, like, you know, it's such a fast-paced way of living. Stuff is building on top of each other. Stuff is dying all the time. People are moving and coming and going. That they lie to each other just for fun. Like, they're a lot more, like, aggressive. They play pranks on each other. Asiri would see them a bit more selfish, but I think she understands it's not, like, for cruelty's sake. It's just how their society is built. It's like, oh, you plot me down in the middle of some place I don't speak the language and I'm confused. That sort of deal. Like,
funny joke.
Yeah, it's just like the body language is familiar, but I don't know what you're trying to say to me. That sort of deal.
Yeah, and it seems more like it's funny just for like, oh, they lie to each other for fun, you know.
Yeah, because if you can sense it, like the fact that you got away with it means you're really good at it, and that's impressive to them. Like they also have songs, and like when a deep folk and a shallow folk meet, they like talk and exchange news, but like the deep folk will probably try to dip as soon as possible because they just don't know how to engage in the games that the shallow folk play, so they're just like, I don't want to mess with what you've got going on. I don't want to start anything, so I'm just gonna dip.
Yeah,
it's like the picture of like the extrovert, the introvert.
Kind of, yeah.
Well, like extreme versions, but you know,
it's just different cultural expectations.
Yeah,
and I think it's a barrier because they all have like the same anatomy. They're subspecies of one another, but it's just like how you utilize it is that defining factor. It makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I think that's so fun though, like that you're like, oh well, there has to be shallow versions of my guys.
Because like almost every culture has some sort of mermaid. Every like seaborne culture has a mermaid or like a sea woman or some sea people myth. So I've tried to incorporate a lot of features of that for this, like, well, why haven't we discovered it? Well, we've seen glimpses of it, we just haven't scientifically recorded it yet. That's kind of what I'm going for here. It's just like, well, these do exist in this timeline, but we have to, like, get all these explanations for our real world lore in there. Like the shallow folk like collecting things. They have like weird little stockpiles of things they find interesting, like corals and garbage and stuff. And then like, you know, of course the song is a big point, like hearing those weird haunting melodies and stuff. Like I'm doing a slight riff on Disney by having her have red hair like Ariel does. Like I'm incorporating all of these features of myth into some crazy bullshit.
It's fun because she's less like she's more monstery than like the Little Mermaid.
And like I remember sitting there with Daniel being like, all right, we're in the car, we're like picking up dinner or whatever, and I was like, I'm gonna play a mermaid, but I don't want like, and no shame to anyone who loves the standard like half naked lady, half fish body. Like that's not what I'm about. I love creatures. And if I'm going to spend the time to develop the system and like develop the evolutionary traits, I want to have fun with it. So like, honestly, I was like, all right, let's do some gender fuckery because why not? All of the members of the species are bidirectional hermaphrodites, which is a big fancy term that just means they can switch gender at will, or sex at will rather. So like social expectations between mermaids are so fun because, you know, you remove that barrier of like, oh, social obligation, I have to pick somebody to mate with and, you know, next generation, blah, blah, blah. Because like at some point, one of them, if they want kids, is going to switch to that, and then they can switch back when the deed is done, you know? Like you can just sort of express yourself and live the way you want. And their like language has like a root name, and then you can just tack on an ending to know, okay, I'm, you know, no gender today, I'm a female today, blah, 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 blah. Like it was just so fun because like taking that inspiration and then designing a Siri who has a very masculine like upper like body shape, but then like all those like high femme sort of like long tentacles for hair and like the like quote unquote hippie shape, like where one would expect a person's hips to be, that sort of stuff. It was just like really liberating to take all of these strange factors of that, like, you know, I think people sort of lock themselves into a little bit, especially like cis people, and just like throw all of that out the window and be like, okay. And like I've designed a couple other mermaids. I haven't like finalized anything, but like all of them just look weird. Like a Siri's father, quote unquote, just is like the most feminine thing you've ever seen. It's glorious. And in fact, in their language, father and mother are not like applied to gender. It's mother just means the one who carried you, and father is the one who shaped you. That's it. Just like,
yeah, that makes sense.
It's beautiful. And it was just very freeing from a creative stance to just go in there and just mess around with, like, not that I haven't messed around with gender before for characters, because I certainly have, but just not to this level, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I totally understand. Like, I made, like, an alien people that, like, get their pronouns from, like, their, like, historical figures that they, like, admire, you know, and, like, their gender.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, their gender is, like, it's read as non-binary by, like, other people, but, like, you know, it's more intricate. And, like, yeah, I think I talked about it on the episode where I, like, talk about ogres and stuff, but yeah, because that's, like, the slang for them are ogres. But, yeah, like, I definitely, I mean, of course I love exploring gender shit in my media, but, like, you know, I totally... Yeah, it's a lot easier to do when you have, like, more alien-ish, at least alien compared to human species. Like, even if this is, like, sort of Earth, sort of not, it's, like, the ocean feels like another
It literally
world,
is.
You know?
We know more about outer space than we do about the deep sea. And if you've ever watched a nature documentary, you know anything we dredge out of the ocean is just like the weirdest fucking thing you've ever seen. And I love it. They have all these weird appendages and just unique adaptations to survive those extreme conditions. And it's so fun to take those weird things and smack them onto a mermaid and see what you get. Like, I saw a picture of a frogfish the other day. I was like, I need to incorporate that into one of the deep folk. That thing is fucking ugly and I love it.
That is the correct mentality. I also look at ugly things and think that is amazing, that is beautiful, that is so
because
unique
I think,
looking.
at least for us as queer people, and, you know, not to project or anything, but like we've been othered and we've been monstered so many times. Like, being able to take that back and just do what you want with it is so much fun. Just to be like, fuck it, I'm going to be the weirdest little freak you ever saw, and I'm going to put it on the page and just, like, live out my weirdo fantasy. And it's so good. And listener, if you've stumbled upon this and you're like, oh, should I join a tabletop game? Yes. Find your friends, make the weird little dude that lives in your head, and go fucking nuts, dude, because you're going to have a great time and you're going to understand yourself better for it. Because, like, going into this, like, I always have, like, a little bit of a goal for a character, and I wanted to explore my softer sides, because I'm like, I don't know, if you hang out with me, I'm just a very scary, mean person in general. I'm very grumpy, but, like...
I haven't noticed that yet.
You know, literally playing as a Siri, some of that, like, optimism and sweetness did start to rub off on me, and I was like, wow, life isn't so bad. And then, like, life came back and, you know, crushed me under, like, a hydraulic press. But still, like, for, like, a flint-gleating moment, there was hope there. And that's the, like, if you're gonna pick a word to describe a Siri, it's hope. That's her entire shtick throughout the game, and she's the one that keeps people on task and motivated for the things that, you know, the party was trying to do. And I think she was a very successful, like, mediator for a lot of those discussions.
Yeah, and it's fun because she had to, like, learn very quickly, like, the ins and outs of surface folk, like, society in order to actually mediate between.
Yeah, because she doesn't know what, like, buildings are, she doesn't know what money is, she doesn't know what writing is, like...
She's like, I fucking can't read shit.
Like, the world is too bright for her. So even though, like, the home world, Chrysalis, is, like, locked in sunset where we were, like, it was still too bright for her sometimes. She had to run around with her eyes closed. Like, it's just, like, you have to learn and adapt so quickly. And I don't think any other character I pulled from this mermaid world would have done so. Like, if I had played her sister, Karina, like, it would have been a very different game.
She would have been like, fuck these people.
Literally, because, like, it came kind of a running joke in the background. I don't know if this ever made it onto our show, but Dan keeps calling Asiri very Starfire from Teen Titans Coded, and that's absolutely true.
That's adorable.
Asiri is Starfire, and her sister is Blackfire, and that's a little bit of inspiration going into it, because I was like, I love... A sibling dynamic, but B, just, like, the core attitude. Asiri is so alien to everything going on the surface that, like, yes, this is, like, the perfect, like, mental framing to, like, gear this character for. And, like, that's the only thing I did with Starfire, but I was like, okay, this is what I want mentally. I want this powerful person who's very sweet and kind, and then I, you know, threw her in the ocean, and we saw what happened.
Is Karine, does she have black hair? Like Blackfire?
No. No, I don't want to be that blatant. Karina has, her hair tentacles are orange. She looks more like a Dumbo octopus than a Asiri's vampire squid. And I have a sketch of Asiri, or not Asiri. I have a sketch of Karina that I'll post in, like, our, you know, private chat later. But I haven't covered her yet, because, you know... time and space and all that stuff. Living a life makes it hard to draw, but...
That is so valid.
I'm impressed that you got the fucking art done. I was like, oh, shit. We've only had, like, one other person, I think, maybe do this, so this is very exciting.
I just love drawing my girl. She's literally, like, infected my sketchbooks, like... It takes me a long time to finish a sketchbook. I think my one sketchbook I just finished last month. I've had for like 5 years or something. But like, she and the person that Asiri develops a very close relationship with throughout the campaign are like have filled up my sketchbook in a matter of months. And I'm already started a new sketchbook that is just filled with the two of them doing dumb shit. So... Asiri's been, like, a little bit of a muse for me. So, and plus she's, like, a tube, so it does not take me nearly as long to crank her out as it would for, like, a normal person who wears clothes and all these other frilly stuff that I like to add when I do art. So, Asiri's very quick to draw. Everyone else takes forever.
Yeah, I understand that. I made a naked character... And it's very easy to draw.
I was like, her partner is like a person, though.
Exactly. And yeah, her partner is a person. I'm not going to spoil who. But, God, I love the two of them together. And again, that's another first for the game. I never had, like, a tabletop, like, romance situation. So that was a lot of fun to engage with as well. So, like, I love the two of them together. I love their story. And I know so much about some of the background stuff that goes into that other character that it's just, like, completely arrested my mind. Please save me. But...
No, it sounds like it's a muse, and that's a good thing, right? Unless...
It is, and it's been a long time since I've had a muse artistically like this. And I think I've produced some of the best art that I've done for a while because of it. And I'm very, very excited about it.
Hell yeah. That rocks. That's so cool. And it's cool that, like, you're expanding it to other folk, other sea folk, ocean folk. But part of me is like, do you write like little like stories about
I do,
them too?
in fact. I do.
Oh,
I just recently wrote one for Dan, my partner, because he's like, you haven't written anything in a while. I'm like, it's because I'm in drawing mode. What's your damage? And he's like, nothing. I just wanted to remind you. But yeah, I've written a couple little vignettes about the two of them, and then some other party characters and NPCs and stuff. I think for OC-tober for 2023, I think about a third or half of them were about Asiri in particular, and then some of them had her partner as well. So
Fuck yeah.
There's a lot. I'm constantly tinkering, I'm constantly working, I'm constantly annoying Daniel because we live together, and he will never know rest because of what he did to me in this game. So it was such a good game.
It is funny, like, I'm sure you didn't go into this thinking this would happen, but the fact that, like, the DM ended up being, like, your partner, and you're, like, the NPC, you know, therefore is being played by his partner,
that was
too.
Sort of wild, because I am not a very romantically inclined person. So, like, I don't think of my characters like that. If they have a relationship and that happens, cool. And usually what happens is, I don't know, like some sort of crazy person, the character tells me what they want, and they're like, okay. And there was one moment where Siri was like, hey, I'm interested in this person. And I was like, all right, let's explore that. Let's see where that goes. So, like, the fact that, like, I got that notion to do so is, like, crazy to me, because I've never done it before. And, like, it goes over my head. It doesn't occur to me. I'm very oblivious to stuff like that sometimes. So the fact that she was just so overt with it, I'm like, all right, let's explore. Let's see where this is going.
Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes you just gotta go with the flow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's always, like, an interesting thing. Like, I've had a lot of conversations with people, like, negotiating, like, relationship. It tends to be more, like, interesting when it's between, like interesting in, like, a I don't know what I'm doing kind of way, when it's between, like, player characters. I feel like as a DM, it's a lot easier to be like, okay, this is my one guy, and they're gonna be with
but that's the fun part about Dan in particular. Dan, this is his first outing as a DM, and, like, by golly, stellar job. And I'm not saying that because I'm obligated to as your partner. If you listen to this later, just know you did a wonderful job. But Dan told me that all of his characters are potentially, like, romanceable for, like, whatever, like, affinity that you want. You just have to put the effort in. You can't just be like, oh, bard, critical hit, like, you know, seduce score. You have to actually put the work in, and if you do happen to critical roll or whatever and get that, there will be consequences if you don't follow up on your gestures later, which is something I feel like is missing a little bit from a lot of the tabletop stuff that I've seen previously. And like Asiri, that's not a problem, because Asiri was fully invested by the time she came to that conclusion. So it was never an issue there. But for some other characters, and I think, like, other than, like, a couple jokes in the game, I think Asiri's relationship was the most serious one. But, like, I fully trust if Dan GMs again anytime soon, like, he will make good on that promise. If you just, like, seduce somebody and abandon them, there will be consequences for that later. And I'm excited to see what that happens if that does follow through.
That makes me want to, like, incorporate that into my game. I mean, not that my players have really had to, like, have followed through with any of, like, they haven't been interested in NPCs that way, but, like, that is fun to, like, think about, like, oh, okay, if you do try to, like, flirt with this person and then you abandon them, what will they do?
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
fucking pissed,
and,
but...
you know, because sometimes a relationship in a tabletop game can become a burden. Like it certainly did in when I ran Vampire most recently. One of Alex's characters made some pretty bad decisions because of his character's relationship with one of the leaders of the city and stuff. So it's not always fun, happy, kissy times, you know.
Yeah.
I love the drama. I'm like,
that's one way of putting
I'm always here for a political relationship-based game. I'm not really like a D&D / and dungeon loot game. I like the social drama of it. That's what I'm here for. And by golly, go listen to this game if you want some social drama.
Yeah, honestly, like even. It's so funny, like, how you guys talk about, like, the drama between your characters. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I'm a fan. I've mentioned that
I love
before,
it. I appreciate it.
I was like, is there gonna be another season?
I can't speak to that yet, but I hope so. I would love to do so, but I know, like, you know, we'd have to arrange something and like time constraints and all that. So like I'm optimistic, like a series. But we'll see where the tides take us, as it were.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to make sure you brought up on this episode? Just because we usually do, you know, like about an hour. Sometimes we go longer, but you know, it's also it's Quatra's bedtime. No.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Because
No, I'm totally joking.
No, it's fine. I'm on holiday actually.
Yeah, no, they're on holiday and took a nap before this. This was me just being an asshole.
Because I could ramble all day. It's not even funny.
Man takes 1 3-hour nap and people start talking about the bedtime as if I'm really old suddenly.
I love it. Let me scroll through my list.
It's okay, Grandpa. It's. I'm kidding. I'm just I think I'm the youngest one on the podcast, so I'm allowed to say that.
If I may.
That is fair, yeah.
If I may, how old are you?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm 29. I'll be 30 in like May.
Wild, and then
I'll be 31 in like 2 or 3 months. I know how
I'm the youngest one here right now, which is crazy to me.
That's funny. Yeah, it happens, so, you know.
Woohoo! Other than, like, getting into, like, highly specific anatomy, I think I'm good. So, like, unless you guys have any pointed questions, anything you are dying to know about my little Goyle here, then I think I am content with my little mermaid mistress.
Yeah, not that I can think of, other than I keep thinking about, like, what if I made an anglerfish deep folk?
Oh, anglerfish! Yes!
Do it, because a series mentor, Elder Musa, is like a 40-foot long anglerfish, and I love her. She's like insane.
That rocks.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Very, very cryptic being Elder Musa is.
Yeah.
Have you considered blobfish?
Well, the thing is, I love blobfish. However, people have a very unfortunate interpretation of blobfish because they don't look like that at depth. They only look like goo when you've brought them out and depressurized them rapidly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have a solid form when they have enough pressure. That's the point. So these would be absolutely the most beautiful creature you've ever seen underwater, and then you take them home to meet the family, and it's like, hello, this is my pile of goo. I swear they look better, but they're out of their comfort zone right now.
I don't know if that works anatomically with mermaids, because they are chondrichthyans, so they are sharks, so they do have cartilage to structure them a little bit, so...
It is kind of funny to think about.
But I love the energy. I love it.
I'm here for vibes only. As I said, I did not pass my biology with a lot of extra.
And again, it's like fantasy. They also have magic. I'm sure, like, if you ripped it, like, warping a Siri into the game start, she probably would have depressurized realistically. But, you know, magic. Don't worry about it. We have to play the game and not just die in the first 10 minutes.
You did have to like work out you did have to work out a workaround for her though. Like you were like, yeah, I do want to play this fish, but I guess I have to be in like this magic glass now.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Psycho Glass is so good. Oh.
I wish I knew more sharks so that I could come up with more like mermaids. But the only sharks I know were the ones that were featured in Shark Tale.
Are you kidding me?
I wish I was joking, but I can say.
I love that. That's so sad. Well, come talk to me about sharks. I will teach you all you need to know. They are my friends. So, yeah.
But if I listen to your podcast, I will pick up some shark facts. I'm sure.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
I try not to wax poetic too much.
Do not test me on it later.
Oh, I will. I'm gonna write like a 20-question exam.
I'm really good at guessing. If it's multiple choice, I cannot read multiple choice questions, but I can answer them, and I've got a pretty good lucky streak.
Excellent. We'll see how that goes.
Your luck stat is very high, apparently. Oh, that was really dorky. I don't know what I'm saying. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Did you want to plug anything else besides the podcast, or is that kind of...
So I don't have any like public social media that I advertise, so I'll rip off what I do on my show, which is you can find me by flipping through the tomes that Quattro and Mork have provided me, full of guides to check out. Look how many pages there are. But if you want to hear me ramble and talk about a series and other character nonsense that's happened in our game, you can find me at Resolve and Afterplay Show. All of our social media handles are at ResolveAP, except for Instagram, which is at Resolve Afterplay. So come check us out. It's a wonderful time.
Yeah. And definitely, especially because, like, I've been someone who's, like, has a hard time listening to actual plays. I like them in theory, but sometimes I have a hard time focusing on them. So I kind of like that you guys just, like, go through and, like, do a short summary and then talk about and go in depth in certain things that you're interested in. And it's just fun. It's a fun it's a newer format.
Yeah,
I like.
and I adore it because, like... I'll be real with you. I don't listen to podcasts. I don't find them pleasurable at all.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious because my podcast is like...
Harsh.
And that's not like your podcast is bad. That's not what I mean to say. I like your show. It's just not...
No, it's valid. It's valid.
It's just not my, like, personal choice for entertainment, but, like, making our show and being on other people's show, it's just a lot of fun. It's one of the things I'm most proud of that I wouldn't have ever have guessed, like, 5 years ago or whatever. But, like, oh my god, like, it's so good. Please.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, definitely. As for myself, you can find me at Haunting the Morgue pretty much everywhere except co-host is Gengar, and my other podcast is The Sonic Hustle, a complete Sonic lore, or like holistic Sonic lore podcast. I always forget the new tagline because it's fucking changed. Whatever. It's a Sonic podcast. Listen to it if you like that.
Sorry, I got distracted because I'm adding podcast.
Thank you.
Plugs. Do I have?
It's okay plugs? If you don't. You're like, I'm not feeling it today.
I don't really. I'm active on Tumblr. At matchfromcowton.tumblr.com, and that's the only social media you can realistically find me where I am active.
Yeah, it sounds like the best place you can find us all is with that book that Sammie was talking about.
yeah, actually it is.
That book of guys.
That book of guys, man, it's the most potent thing.
Yeah, just think of a guy and there I am.
Yep, we'll just insert a Siri into the page of the tome, and then I would love to be on if you'll have me again. So I've got lots of dudes to talk about.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can find this podcast at Check Out This Guy on Tumblr and co-host. I think technically I made a Blue Sky for it, but I never update
it. We have too many social media. We gotta tone it down.
It's my fault. I was like, I don't do the editing, so I gotta do the social media aspect.
And then you went overboard.
Yeah, I did. You can find this podcast on noisepace.xyz, home of other various podcasts that we've talked about a billion times. So I think that's it. So I'm trying to think of a good way to close this. I guess we're just swimming very slowly back to the surface so we don't depressurize.
Light flickering above us, and we've taken into the moon's embrace.
Yeah, perfect. Great. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sammie.
Thank you for having me.